is general business item 5A, confirm appointment of Thomas Wolfe to Chief of Police. Presenter is Mayor Wheeler.
Okay, so good evening, Council. We have been through this already, and at last meeting, the Council requested that I bring back Chief Wolfe, Interim Chief Wolfe, to you to be confirmed for a permanent appointment, and I gladly complied with your request. And we have Charlotte Nelson from HR, and of course Kylie is here from the legal department to help answer any questions you might have. Again, though, we've just about everything else has been covered in previous conversations with council in meetings. So I'll stand by. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Does any member of the public wish to comment on this item? And if you would, just hit use the raise hand function in Zoom or by hitting *9. And I see Dennis. If you wouldn't mind, please stating your full name for the record, please, Dennis.
My name is Dennis Harmon. Do you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear. Go ahead with your comments, Dennis.
Okay. I want assurance that this hire is not designed to just punish Brother Don's on the noise ordinance lawsuit that Wheeler himself, it seems to have an orgy over.
Mr. Harmon, please ask to refrain from using any language like that. But please continue.
I am concerned that the council and the mayor just want to punish some businesses for standing up for themselves for playing music.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Harmon. Let's see. Is there anyone else? Looks like Mr. Jeff Campbell. Please go ahead.
There's the unmute. Okay. You can hear me, I hope. First, I'd like to offer a sincere apology to Leslie Doggs. I in no way meant to question your honesty, your integrity, or your dedication to serving our city. What bothers me is reversing a vote for an open process on selection of our police chief on an off week for the city council when not all members were even present. And to do that after pressure from law enforcement officers is really problematic. The new laws that Chief Wolfe and members of law enforcement are worried about relate to police conduct and oversight. I can't think of any better reason to have an open selection process for our chief of police. On the equity side of this, if the city of Bremerton really is devoted to diversity, equity, and inclusion in city government, we're going to have to do something other than just follow the same old backroom process that got us where we are today. The preferable course would be for the city council and the mayor to embrace an open process that not only allows, but actually encourages public input on decisions being made. That is what we mean when we talk about systemic problems. We aren't talking about Tom Wolfe. We're talking about the entire process of selecting the police chief. I hope you'll reverse your decision today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Anyone else for public comment on this item? And let's see, let's go to Mr. Darrell Riley next.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yep. Yeah, we could hear you, Darrell.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I spoke at the last meeting and I didn't come here to rehash the same thing. I came to speak to a question that the absent council member stated in the newspaper about he was perplexed about the decision. And I can tell you that what I saw was council members doing their homework and going out and talking to people who this would affect. I congratulate the council and I respectfully agree with you that there needs to be a process. I think we should all assist the mayor in trying to work out that process. But I just think this is the best decision for the city at this time, and I thank you all for your courage.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. Next, we'll go to Ms. Amy Camp.
Yes, sorry about speaking up at the wrong time before. As I was saying before, I'm a little disappointed that the decision was made to not look outside the department. I noticed that money was something that was mentioned, that worried about spending money on a job search, but that seems a bit counterproductive because we do want what's best for our city. And what's best for our city is finding the best person for the job. Now, if he's the best person for the job, there should be no problem interviewing other people and going outside the city. He would absolutely rise above that if he's the best person for the job. But my problem is that we have had issues in the past with our officers. They've been in the news. We've had lawsuits about it. And if we're not going outside of our small pool and looking to see what other thought processes and viewpoints are, then are we really doing our due diligence and everything we can for our city? My other issue is the continuing of the process of reporting officers for misconduct. At this point, you are usually passed on to a supervisor who's friends with them, and that's as far as it goes. It seems that if you will call in to report or send in a report, it's almost ignored. And if we continue to keep all these people together that are just buddies and not anyone who's going to hold them accountable, that's going to continue to be an issue. I would like to see if we're going to keep the exact same people in the same positions and just keep promoting from within, then we would need some outside assistance for handling misconduct.
All right, thank you, Ms. Camp. Does any other member of the public wish to comment on this item? All right, I'm not seeing any other hands. Kelly, can you confirm, please?
I confirm, no hands.
All right, well, with no other members of the public that wish to speak, we will turn to the council for a motion. Vice President Dowds.
Thank you, President Gorman. Let me get there. Move to confirm the appointment of Thomas Wolfe to the position of Chief of Police and authorize the mayor to finalize and execute the employment contract with substantially same terms and conditions as presented.
All right, and then Councilmember Sullivan.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We're open for discussion, and I'll turn to Vice President Dowds first.
Thank you, President Gorman. So I am the one who made a motion to bring this back to the table. We've had a discussion over this, and I just want to share with the community. We had a discussion over this. I think this has been a 6-week process to get here. I knew this was going to come back to the table from the first time, and so I did my homework. I reached out to our communities. I listened to our community members. I also reached out to our police department. I reached out to 12 police officers and a few captains and lieutenants because I wanted to hear the other side of the story. And I think for us as council members, we need to do our homework. We need to make sure we hear both sides of the story and hear the actual goings on and seeing. And in the end, our decision is to be what's best for the city, our community, and the citizens. And so I made that motion. But some of the things I want to bring to everyone's attention because of that, there was a comment made that does anyone in our department wish to apply for this position? And no one wants this position at this present time within our own department. So they've shared that with me. Another comment was made that we as a city do not have employees that are part of the hiring process. And I disagree with that. Chief Schmidt and Chief Strand was in a hiring process. the community members, our council and staff and employees from those departments were part of the interview process. So yes, we are involved in interview process. Yes, employees are involved in the interview process, especially since the union employees have a say over their department heads. So yes, we have set that precedence. Yes, we have been involved in employee interviews, and so has the employees. But we've done a recent job search with our recent fire department. We spent $35,000. I am not against spending the money for a hiring process. I am not against spending the money to do the hiring process. But we did spend $35,000 for a fire chief. We had 7 applicants. 7 of them were all white males. And in the end, we ended up hiring Chief McGanny. So that's an important issue to remember. 2, some of the things I found out when I met with the department is that there is a lot of unrest in our department right now, and we have employees leaving, moving, and so we are at a point where we are going to have employees leaving, and the police officers shared with me that they need someone at this time right now because of these changes. Yes, we have these state mandates, but because of these changes, they want someone that's going to be consistent within their department and someone that knows these state laws. And Chief Wolfe, he did a training with his department. He brought in a few attorneys to talk about the new state law mandates because he wanted his department to be aware of these state law mandates. He is one of the few chiefs that has provided this to other departments. To other cities. Other cities have not done this. And so he got a lot of praises for that. The other thing is, I mentioned the consistency. All the officers wanted the consistency. The other thing the officers shared is if we do a hiring process and we happen to bring, the question was brought up, maybe someone from the state of Washington might apply. Yes, probably. But there's also opportunities that we might get people from like Texas. And our department shared with me that they don't want to hire someone from Texas that doesn't know our state laws, and it might put the department in jeopardy. So there are so many things. Moving forward, when we start doing department heads, I am all in favor of a hiring process, but listening to the police department, listening to their stories, and listening to the reason why they request to appoint Chief Wolfe is because they feel comfortable with him in the department. They know that he's going to be a consistent force in them. And as an interim, he is on a temporary basis of anything with hires. So in other words, if he promotes, they're only interims. And so he only has a short lease of work that he can work by. If he's appointed, he could start moving forward and getting his department some hires and for the recent losses. But and the one thing I also want to mention is the last thing we want is a tokenized person of color. It would not benefit that particular individual, and it would not benefit our police department. We need someone that's going to be there. The one thing I do want to say is we've seen a lot of information in the news. And I also know, I've also heard the other sides of the story regarding that. And the one thing I want to say about that is there have been reprimands. There have been recourse. I know this for a fact. Even though some people may say differently, there has been recourse. And so I, as a council member, do not have any say in HR practices. I'm assuming that our department have reprimanded and done recourse within their own department. And everyone has been, either reprimanded or whatever the case may be. So that's not my job as an HR. My job is to look at what's best for the city. And I did reach out to individuals. I did reach out to our department and putting the pieces together. This is the best fit for our city right now. And our police department said, maybe this is a good fit for the next few years, and who knows what happens in the next few years. So they need this, and we need to support them in these trying times. I am all about these state law mandates, and I totally understand them, but I also understand what's best for our city. So those are some of the reasons why I made this motion forward, because I listened to our community and I also listened to the department and put all the pieces together. And in the end, majority of the conversation was keep Police Chief Wolfe as their department chief at the moment. So thank you, President Gorman, and I look forward to this conversation.
All right, next we'll go to Councilmember Sullivan.
Thank you, President Gorman. So we've, as everybody knows, we've talked about and discussed this at length. So I'm just going to say that our Bremerton City Police Department is since day one, since I've come on to the Bremerton City Council, has been communicated as being highly respected by other police departments. We are a leader in police changes and taking on new mandates and fulfilling those mandates. And that change occurred, to my knowledge, with the former police chief. And unfortunately, I am drawing a blank on his name at this moment. Who was the police chief prior to?
Burchett?
No, before Burchett. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Strahan? Steve Strahan?
Thank you. The changes began occurring with Chief Strand, and former Chief Burchett was a member of our police force at the time under Chief Strand. And when he moved into the ranks, he continued the training and the service and excellence of our police department that was carried down from Chief Strand. Interim Chief Wolfe has been in our police department under both of those chiefs, and he has, therefore, in my opinion, has been granted great training for the position that he will be moving into. That, along with the changes in the legislature that Interim Chief Wolfe has already been working with, that Washington State is the only state with those mandates. If you bring in a chief from states that don't have those mandates, that individual, he or she, has to get up to speed and try to move forward our department and who knows if they'll go in the right direction. We've already got an interim chief who's going in the right direction, who's already up to speed with those new mandates that no other state has. And I believe that the continuity that we have with Interim Chief Wolfe is best for the city. On the point of spending money, if I didn't believe that he was the continuity of the existing interim chief was not in the best interest of the city, I wouldn't care if it cost $100,000. $35,000 would be really cheap. But at this point, with all of the unrest in the country, the new mandates, I firmly believe that Interim Chief Wolfe is the person to take us forward into the future. So with that, I thank you for hearing my comments.
All right, next we'll go to Councilmember Younger.
Thank you. So for the record, to clarify, there was no outside recruitment for Chief McGanny. It did not cost $35,000, and there were not 7 white males on the as nominees or applicants. Chief McGanny was selected, approved by the City Council in February of 2020. I've heard that false narrative at least four occasions since this all started approximately a month ago. That is not true. The last outside recruitments for the police and fire chief were for Chief Strand, hired in February of 2013, and for Chief Schmidt, hired in April of 2017. The cost was $16,000 and $26,000 respectively. For Chief Schmidt's position, there were 20 applicants and 4 finalists. For Chief Strand's position, there were 5 applicants and there were 2 finalists. One of the applicants was Jefferson County Sheriff Tony Hernandez, a Bremerton native. Raised in Bremerton, 1990 graduate of Bremerton High School. The other ones, because we have this fear of someone from Texas being appointed, were former King County Sheriff Steve Strand, who ultimately was selected, State Patrol Captains Robert Johnson, and C. Stephen Sutton, also former Santa Paula, California Chief Stephen McKinnon. So there were 5 applicants, 4 from in-state, 1 from out-of-state, none from Texas. I don't understand the hesitancy against Texas. Nevertheless, I find it difficult to believe that any applicant at the chief of police level would have problems interpreting our state mandates. I'm dismayed and disappointed that no one from the administration pointed out that there was no outside recruitment for Chief McGanny. It did not cost $35,000, and the applicants did not consist of 7 white males, and that narrative was allowed to continue to be presented. Since the recruitments that were mentioned, indicating that the city does have public input, we did have public input for the police and fire chief. But as I mentioned, that was in February of 2013, April of 2017, not under Mayor Wheeler. Under Mayor Wheeler, there were no vacancy announcements. There were no public process for the selection of the police chief, the fire chief, assistant fire chief, the city attorney, and now the police chief again. From the beginning, as council president, I reminded Mayor Wheeler that there should be a public process. I never got an affirmative that I will do it. And in fact, he did not. In March of 2020, the mayor issued and approved a workforce diversity and inclusion policy. I will not bore you with all the pages, but I do have some highlights I would like to share with the council and the public. Vision. It is the desire of the city to reflect the diverse community that we serve. As an organization, we are committed to seeking diverse applicant pools for our vacant positions and to create a culture that promotes mutual respect, acceptance, cooperation, and a supportive work environment which enables us to attract and retain a diverse workforce. Goals and objectives. The city of Bremerton has implemented this workforce diversity and inclusion policy to assure equality in employment and to achieve and maintain a workforce which reflects the diversity of our community. Just a couple more. Through the consistent application of the practices and procedures required by this policy, we strive to build a workforce which reflects the diversity of the community in culture, race, gender, and disability. And here's my emphasis, at all levels of compensation and responsibility in city government. Under roles and responsibilities, it says the mayor is responsible for communicating the city's commitment to equal employment opportunity and workforce diversity. The mayor will ensure that all city employees and representatives carry forth the spirit of this commitment. I will argue to you that the mayor may have done so. There is a press release posted on June 15th. You can see it on our website, where he announced that he's pleased to share with community members the first ever workforce diversity and inclusion policy for the city of Bremerton. He states, "This has been a long time coming, and I am proud that we have accomplished what should have been done many, years ago. We have modernized this policy, among others, to reflect the needs of our population. I present to you that although we may have this policy, we were better off under the previous administration. May not have had the policy, but we sure practiced it. We had community outreach. We had public input. We don't have that anymore. A couple more items and then I'll be done with my statements. A caller came in, I think it was Ms. Camp. Well, actually, Mr. Canalong. He mentioned that he would hope that the next police captain would be selected using diversity inclusion policies. If you turn, Mr. Long, to the June 21st Facebook posting for the City of Bremerton Police Department, you will see that promotions have already been made. And in fact, the letter in the packet from the Police Management Guild has a signature, I believe, of Police Captain Mike Davis. And when you select from within, the city's policy, the mayor's policy, is to promote the next man up. So we have Captain Mike Davis, a sergeant became lieutenant, and a corporal became sergeant. So you can see this is not just about the promotion of a captain to a chief of police. This has a chain effect. One other thing that I'd like to mention, I would like the council to refrain from using the term a tokenized person of color. I find this offensive. This was mentioned when I watched the tape, and this was mentioned previously. That is not the intent. The intent is to have an outreach outside the city of Bremerton to find the best, most qualified candidate. If that person happens to be a person of color, so be it. The way we're doing this now, with not even a vacancy announcement, will prevent the outreach from happening, and there will be no chance to pick an applicant who may come from a underrepresented part of our community. Thank you.
All right, next we'll go to Councilmember Dennehy.
So thank you, Council President. As the newest member of council, I really appreciate the institutional knowledge that Councilman Younger just shared with us. That's very important, and that other council members have shared. And I really hope that all of us do the due diligence to figure out the facts of what is being said. For me, my problem has always been with the process. I think that I stated that the first meeting, I stated it the second meeting. The reason that I went along with the motion of last meeting is because I did talk with community members, formerly incarcerated community members who are working with homeless populations. And they had a very long meeting with Captain Wolfe, where Captain Wolfe did pledge to meet with folks regularly, to engage with community members in his service, those that are homeless, those that are on the other side of the law. I think no matter what happens with this vote tonight or the appointment of the next captain, it is extremely clear that this point in history in the United States, community members, elected officials, administrators, the eyes are on the police. It is a very, very important and sacred duty that they have pledged to defend the Constitution, to keep communities safe. However, there has been lots of instances where that justice has not been meted out fairly and justly for numerous reasons. And there's a recall on that in this country, and there's a recall on that in this community right now. What I will be pledging as a council member is to have relationships with both community members and the police department to make sure that they know that they will be held accountable. I appreciate that Captain Wolfe said that he will hold accountable police officers who unjustifiably use force. I have a philosophical disagreement and a legal disagreement about the way that the courts interpret qualified immunity at this point, but I did find his answer to be acceptable and what I would expect from somebody that's in law enforcement. I will have to say that I do agree that the amount of money, as Councilmember Sullivan stated, is negligible. And I would have spent $100,000, $200,000 if we could make sure that we are holding the person accountable who's leading the department to make sure that they are, dedicated to race equity hiring in their hiring practices, in their comments to police officers in use of force. And I think diversity, as the diversity plan states out, isn't just about protected classes that are disability, sexual orientation, race, but it's diversity of thought as well. Even if there were 7 white male applicants, there's 6 white males on this panel right now. And I guarantee that we have very divergent views of race equity along the spectrum. And it would be important for the citizens of Bremerton and for the police force to hear what our thoughts are on race equity and what the theory of policing is. I will say that I am in favor of moving, Captain Wolfe forward, because I did talk to a couple of captains. I did talk to community members, and I do feel that this person is dedicated to what's best in Bremerton. But I will say that the eyes of the community, the eyes of council, the eyes of the press are upon the Bremerton Police Department, as they are on police departments across the nation. And if the police officers can't handle these new reforms and they're leaving, good. That is a good thing. And I would ask Captain Wolfe to hold his officers to a very high standard, because we are going to be holding you to a very high standard.
All right, any further council comments? Councilmember Simpson.
Thank you, Council President. So tonight we have been presented with the idea that our process is broken. It is, but we don't get a vote on the process tonight. We get a vote on a candidate, and our candidate, we're going to do an up or down vote on the candidate that's presented before us, and that's pretty much it. The process we're going to have to fix. That's readily apparent, and we're going to do that going forward. And I think we should go ahead and call for the question.
All right, any final comments from council? Councilmember Goodnow.
Some excellent points, and I'm not going to rehash a lot of stuff, especially that stuff I agreed with that Eric had brought up and Quinn and others. But we kind of, I think Mike Simpson hit it on the head when it's it's the process, and it's the process is what we set, and it's been set in place, and so it's the mayor does the selection ultimately, and we do the confirmation, and I think we have a qualified candidate to move forward. I'd be very interested in us going back and looking at maybe some policies for hiring department heads and things like that. Like, let's take action on the themes inside the diversity hiring and stuff, and make sure that fits that. So anyways, that was the bulk of it. Just, we have the opportunity to retool the system, and but I do also think that we have a good candidate.
All right, now we're going back for second rounds. Councilmember Younger.
Yes, just real briefly, I disagree that we can't consider the process. We've already faced this before. On or about August 12th, approximately a month or so ago, the council gave the mayor direction to conduct a job search for the police chief position and include a panel of council members and community members in the decision. Mayor Wheeler agreed to do so. Then we have a council member that chose to revisit a decision that the council had indicated to the mayor should be followed. And unfortunately, the mayor didn't step up and say, you know what, I already committed to doing this. I want to have public input. I want to reach out to the community. I want a fair process. Instead, he took the easy route. He said it tonight. I'm going to go ahead. Thankfully, the council reversed this decision. I'm disappointed in that. And we could vote tonight to go ahead and reverse it again. It just doesn't make sense to make this type of decision. Chief Wolfe can still be Chief Wolfe. We can name him interim, and we can go through the process, the proper procedure, and do the right thing. If we want to shortchange that and rush through this, by all means, go ahead and vote for him. I haven't even gone into whether we should. I haven't even gone into the merits of the applicant because the process is so flawed. And I'll leave it at that. But I've never been so sure on a decision on what the right thing is to do. And I feel real lonely here because, but you know what? I'll sleep well at night. Thank you.
All right, any final comments? Not seeing any takers. Yeah, I'm conflicted on this. I hate backtracking. I hate doing it twice. That's even worse. It's a serious topic though, and I think one of the benefits that we have from backtracking is that we get to discuss it more. And I think that's always a good thing. I don't have anything to add. I'm going to vote my conscience, and I ask that everybody else does too, and do what you think is the right thing. And with that, I call for the question.
Councilmember Dowds,
Yes.
Dennehy,
Yes.
Goodnow,
Yes.
Simpson,
Yes.
Younger,
No.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Gorman.
No.
Motion carries. 5 yeses, 2 noes.